YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for May 27th to June 2nd. This week I read 4 books, I watched 1 show, and I listened to 1 book. As you can see, this is not my normal setup because I am currently house-sitting for my best friend, which means that I'm taking care of a dog that loves me, 2 tank-dwelling critters that are indifferent to me, and a cat that wants to murder me. I also thought I wouldn't get a lot of reading done this week because I was performing in an atomic vaudeville show, but most of what I read was really short. First this week I finished Behold the Dreamers by Mbolo Mwe. This was the final book I needed to complete for my BookTube Picks My TBR challenge, and I did just that. This book is about an immigrant family from Cameroon that winds up working for a wealthy Wall Street family right before the market crash. Through various family members we see comparisons of their lives and the countries that they were born in, and how perspectives can completely shift the perception of a situation. I loved the exploration of language in this book, as much of it is written in Pidgin English and other sections are just not translated into English at all. This book talks about race, mental health, and the so-called American dream. The next book I finished was Even This Page is White by Vivek Sharaya. This is a poetry book about race and the intersectionalities of gender and sexuality. The author discussed racism in terms of various minority populations, and there was a part in the middle that's written as a question and answer section between the author and allies she has found in the Canadian poetry scene. The way the poems were presented on the page was also interesting because initially the text was given a very small amount of space on the white page. I originally saw this book recommended by my friend Monica, so I'll link her video in places because she has other recommendations. My next read was Goldie Vance Volume 1 by Hope Larson. This is a graphic novel about an amateur detective who works as a valet by day and a private detective basically every other time of the day. For some reason, this resort has a detective's office on site and she can often be found there learning as much as she can to crack cases. This is a middle grade read, so the stories are simplistic, but it is worth noting that by the end of this volume there is a female-female romance blossoming. The final book I read this week was The Radical Element, edited by Jessica Spotswood. This is a collection of 12 short historical fiction stories written about women who defied expectations in America. All in all, I enjoyed each story, and I liked the concept of having a collection that empowered women to make their own moves in situations where they are the minority. This collection also played with the intersectionalities of race and sexuality, and some of the tales had magical realism. This week we went back in time and watched the first half of Survivor Australia, which was season 2. There are people in this season that I recognize from more recent seasons, which is fun because my best friend watched up until about the 20th season and I started somewhere in the 30s. So our knowledge of contestants doesn't really overlap. A rule they used to have is if 2 people were tied for being voted out at tribal council, the way to break that tie was to see how many votes were cast against them in previous tribal councils. Since I started watching the show many years after its inception, it's fun to go back to the beginning and see how it all started, including the first medical evacuation. This week I listened to Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. Although things might seem fine when you start this book, you come to realize that Eleanor did not have an average upbringing. Having originally hailed from London, she is now living in Glasgow and has been working at the same office for nearly a decade. She's mocked often by her co-workers, usually with pop culture references she doesn't understand, but as a reader we would. At first you believe she had a very proper upbringing where she was taught elevated vocabulary and manners, but as you learn more about her past, her antiquated social expectations seem like more of a defense mechanism. As I said in my May wrap-up, there are lots of plot points and character interactions in this book that are fascinating, and I don't want to run the risk of spoiling anything. Eleanor is peculiar and judgmental, but her personality develops over the course of the book. She slowly builds up courage to speak up for herself, and the audiobook is well acted. If you're looking for a book with an unusual protagonist or that deals with mental health, this is worth picking up. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!